Hello, heathens. I'm Megan Angus, and this is Spinning the Wheel podcast. In this weekly audio ritual, we explore the 8 seasons of the witch's wheel of the year, and we discover how it is so much more than 8 Sabbats. We weirding witches time travel through holy days, festivals, and celestial events connecting our celebrations and magic to the past, present, and future. Our cackling fills the night as we take our turn gathering the wool, wielding the distaff, and spinning the wheel. And welcome back to the podcast. Okay, that's more than enough of that. Hi, everybody. It is I, your sweaty host, Megan Angus, here with yet another episode of Spinning the Wheel. Apologize for the lateness of this episode. Blame climate change. Also, I apologize for the sound of the fan in the background. You know, I prefer the audio to be pristine here on the podcast, but too bad, right? That's what it is. I did move away from the hot weather. I just want that on record. When people are like, "Why are you bitching about the weather? Why don't you move somewhere where it's cold?" I did. I followed the rules. I did move where it was cold, and you motherfuckers made it hot. So it's not me. I don't even drive a car. So don't even talk to me about it. All right, that's enough of that. I had to get that out of my system. Hopefully, everything goes okay with this. If you're hearing it, I was successful at finally recording this podcast. That's how we'll know. Okay, let's do a little preamble before we get into the stuff. Thank you so much for listening. If you are a fan of the podcast, please leave a rating, please leave a review. We absolutely love it when you share this podcast on social media, share it with your friends and family, your coworkers, whomstever you think should be hearing all of this. And if you really think it's dope, leave me a tip or join my Patreon. You can send me tips through Venmo. You can also join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. As a means of supporting me and supporting this work. And folks who join at the Mercury level and higher, which is $5 a month and higher, will get notes to every week's podcast. There's a lot more in the notes than what I even say in the podcast, if you can imagine. And folks who join at the Venus level, which is $9 a month and higher, get access to the workbooks and the calendars that all of this information comes out of, that has even more information than what we cover in the podcast and in the notes for the podcast and. It's a lot. In other words, it's a lot of material. So please join my Patreon and swim in the material. Oh my God, I'm so sweaty. Okay. Okay, we're going to get through this. We're not going to be dry when we get through it, but we're going to get through it. Anything else going on? Yes, we are going to have a tarot circle at some point this month. Tarot circle is a free monthly offering for my patrons exclusively. You got to be a patron to attend tarot circle. What are we talking about this month? I don't know. I really don't know, but we're going to find out together, and it's going to be exciting, probably. So that's coming up. If you haven't already, head to my YouTube channel, or here on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast, and check out the Lughnasadh class. If you are like, what season are we in? What Sabbath? What's going on? What's this whole witchcraft thing you're talking about? Go check out that 2-hour class. Our next Sabbath is Mabon, or fall equinox, and that class will be somewhere in the first 2 weeks of September. I'll put up some ads about that soon enough. You can follow whatever, my YouTube channel for alerts about that stuff. Follow me on the socials, Megan Angus Witch, everywhere. You can also head to my website where I've got lots of information on the Sabbats. Join my irregular newsletter. I don't send newsletters out nearly as often as I should, but whatever. It's all good. Okay. Anything else? Oh yeah. Um I have the illustrious honor of joining two very radical witches, Ilva and Kiki. Ilva is Bimbo Yaga on Instagram, probably TikTok too. Kiki is the Opulent Witch on Instagram. And they both are the masterminds behind the tarot oracle deck, The Living Altar, as well as that podcast, etc., etc. And they are going to be hosting a really incredible witch dome at this year's Bumbershoot. So the witch dome is going to feature a community altar as well as practitioners in several different methods. There's going to be Reiki therapy, astrology, runes, tarot, it's and more. Um, come if you're heading out to Bumbershoot this year, come say hi, come visit us at the Dome. It will be one of the maybe the only public readings that I will be doing this year, where you can just walk up, sign up, get a reading. Um, yeah, so come see me if you're heading out to Bumbershoot this year. Come see us. Come say hi. Okay, that's it. All right, let's get into this motherfucking podcast. Okay, where are we? We are in Lughnasadh season, micro new moon in Leo, lunar week 20 by some lunar calendars. A little Sippington, and then let us head into this business. Okay. As I said, if you're like Lughnasadh, what the hell is that? Go watch the class. We have no time. Um, love you so much. Okay. Um, let's just get directly into this. So our new moon was Wednesday, August 16th at 2:38 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, later in the day for everybody else around the planet. And first off, this is a micro new moon. What does that mean? That means in the moon's orbit around Earth, it wobbles, just like everything in space, just like everything in the universe, it wiggles. And part of it's, some of the time it's a little further away from Earth, some of the time it's a little closer to Earth. When we are having a micro new moon or full moon, that is going to be the new moon that is the furthest away from Earth. Now, most people don't pay attention to the micro new moons or the super new moons because it's a new moon. You can't see the moon. So you can't tell visually that the moon has come closer or gone further away. But I like it for the metaphor. So I tend to pay attention to the moon that is the closest and the moon that is the furthest, whether it's the new moon or the full moon. Okay. So what's the metaphor here? That the moon is a little further away than it usually is. So, whatever influence, whatever guidance, whatever symbolism we might connect to the moon, and specifically to a new moon, it's a little further from us at this point. Um, and what can that mean? It can mean that it's a little more abstract. It can mean that it's a little less influential. It can mean that we might need to go inward and have some private time or some quiet time to really be able to pick up on the influences or the energies or the whatever it is that we think is happening when we're hanging out with the moon. It may be a little more subtle for us on a micro moon. That's my opinion. Again, this is one of those things where we go back a couple hundred years. The ancients weren't even paying, and the not so ancients weren't even paying attention to micro moons and super moons. So, to an extent, this is more of a modern phenomenon than not. So do with that information what you will. Okay, this is also a moon in Leo. We have been traveling through the sign of Leo for the last 3 weeks. We are pretty much at the end of Leo. These are our last days of Leo. Um, and uh, and it is at 23 degrees plus. We'll just say 23. If you want to say 24, go for it. Um, This moon is square to Uranus in Taurus, also at 23 degrees, and it is widely conjunct Venus retrograde at 18 degrees of Leo. Okay, so what are we doing with a new moon in Leo? Well, Leo itself is a fire sign, and it's a fixed fire sign. So Leo is all about bravado, courage, uh, magnanimous attitudes and actions, flair. I often think of solar flare as being a very cute metaphor for the vibes of Leo. Um, it is big hearted. Leo energy can also be ostentatious, flashy, flirty, um, very creative. Leo energy can be that energy that is in the spotlight. Where can we go a little awry with Leo energy? Where solar flare turns into bragging, right? Where hot turns into scorching. Um, where standing in the spotlight turns into hogging the spotlight or stealing the spotlight or refusing to allow others the spotlight. Um, Leo energy, when it goes awry, can be very egocentric, can be very self centered, can be a little greedy about things, but more greedy about attention than it is about supplies or money or that sort of thing. Um, Leo energy can be extremely dramatic to the point of being melodramatic. Um, and if you're laughing and you're like, oh, that describes my Leo friend to a T. Well, hi, hello, it's my job. Yes. But also, don't forget, all of us have Leo in our chart somewhere. Do you have planets in Leo? Maybe you don't. That's okay. The sun is the ruler of Leo, and all of us have the sun in our chart somewhere. The fifth house is naturally or natively connected to the sign of Leo, and all of us have a fifth house somewhere in our chart. So all of us have an opportunity to step into whatever the Leo energy is and whatever it represents for us. Leo energy comes to us here in Lughnasadh season. It kind of, when the sun enters Leo, it sort of kicks off Lughnasadh season. And this Sabbath, Lughnasadh, is very much about being prideful, being boastful, showing off, competing and winning, or maybe losing, performing, um, and being in the spotlight, receiving praise for the stuff that we do, and doing things well, knowing that you're a badass and sharing your badassery with the community. This is the vibe for Leo. And at the deep root of that is love. Leo rules the heart and the chest, um, and the back, the upper back specifically, in the body. And so those things that get our heart racing, right? Love, sex, power, competition, running across a field, doing hard work, like in the sunshine, right? All of that stuff, very, very Leo. At the deep root of the Leo energy is love. Why am I showing off? Because I have a love for myself, or I have a love for the skills that I have developed. I'm generous because I love my friends, I love my people, I love my community, uh, that type of stuff. And one of the planets, really the planet that represents a lot of our loving or love oriented relationships, Venus, is retrograde in Leo right now, has been for a minute, and is conjunct ish to this new moon. So we have the sun, we have the moon, we have Venus all hanging out in Leo, and we also have Mars way out at the end of Leo. It's just about to go into Virgo. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But we have a lot of energy here in Leo in this moment for this new moon, and for the majority of this week. We've got this Leo energy going down. Moon stuff, sun stuff, Venus stuff, Mars stuff, all under the glowing, radiant, but occasionally scorching and a little too much energy of Leo. So, what do we do with a new moon? Well, we are kicking off a new process or a new phase of our process or a new iteration of our process, right? We're not all reborn utterly and literally every new moon, although in a way that could be really dope. And I think in a way that'd be extremely frustrating. But new moons are our every 30 days, every 29 and a half days, opportunity to restart the thing, to reorient ourselves in the thing, to come back to the thing, recommit to the thing. Like it's our opportunity to start again. And and we get this opportunity every 4 weeks. It's very lovely. And so our new moons in Leo are really this opportunity, this invitation to come back to the conversation with ourselves and potentially with our community around what is my badassery? Am I sharing that enough? How am I a badass? In what ways am I a badass? We already know I am, you are, we are. So let's be definitive about what exactly is my badassery. And then am I going out into the world and sharing that in meaningful ways? Um, One of my, well, we'll talk about that at the end of the podcast, but we have exercises for this. Okay. And I know that there are some of us who are like, hell yeah, baby, team extrovert, let's go. And then I also know that there are other folks out here who are like, please stop perceiving me. You go. I'm not going to go, but you should. Goodbye forever. I get that. I get that. Leo season, and specifically when we have our new moon in Leo, this is an opportunity to return to this conversation and just talk with yourself about what am I trying to do with that. If you're an extrovert, you're like, oh, I've got this in a bag. Is there a way that we can refine it? Is there a way that we can take our extrovertism whatever, and be more purposeful with it? Is there a way that we can sit with our introvertness and get ourselves to show off a little bit or perform a little bit or do something special for a few of our loved ones, right? When we talk about being in a spotlight and being on stage, some folks feel like that means that, you're on stage in front of 100,000 people in a stadium. Sure, yes, I realize the Leo dream. I know. But that's not the dream for all of us. That's not the dream for everyone. It doesn't have to be in front of 100,000 people. It could be in front of your three besties. It could be in front of, the five people from your family who really deserve to see that thing shown off. And when I talk about showing something off, and I'll talk about this also a little bit more towards the end of the podcast, I mean all kinds of stuff. Literally learn a thing or go back to learning something and improve a thing and then just show it off to somebody. Literally, that's it. That's the whole damn thing. Um, what are my notes from the workbook? We demonstrate our radiance through creating, performing, or otherwise commanding the spotlight or taking a leadership role in joy for our community. So there also is something very important. If we're feeling obligated, if we're feeling like really pressed about that stuff, then we're not doing it in joy. And that's part of why I say sometimes we need to limit it to just a few people, because that's part of how we keep it good for us, right? Or I don't want to share this with everybody. I only want to share it with the people who deserve it. Okay, cool. Then share it, but do please share it with the people who deserve it. Okay. Talking just a little bit about where are we at? We're 20 minutes into the damn podcast. Hear me. I'm gonna keep this one short. I swear to God. Somebody carved that on my tombstone. This new moon is square Uranus in Taurus and conjunct Venus. So we've already kind of talked about the Venus element here, right? Venus retrograde is something we've been talking about for a minute. It's our opportunity to review, reassess, reorganize, rescind, reconnect, to our conversation with ourselves and our processes with ourselves and others in those places that speak to love, companionship, connectivity, creativity, as well as money and all of that stuff. And like I said, I know we've talked about the Venus retrograde quite a bit over the last few weeks because it's touched a lot of things in the sky as it's been happening. But let's take a second for this square to Uranus. So, or from, yeah, to. Uh, Uranus, my loving name for this planet, is the zodiacal table flipper. Uranus is the karate chop of the zodiac. Um, Uranus brings sudden change, chaos, upheaval uh, to situations, and many times it is difficult to understand what is this for? Why are you doing this, Uranus? What is the problem? Everything was fine, and then you had to come along and flip the card table. And underneath everything, what Uranus represents in our process is that urge in us to change it up, to shift it, to jostle the energy, to shake it up. Why? Because things are starting to feel too calcified, too stale, too stagnant. And something in us is saying, we have stopped growing. We have stopped changing in meaningful ways. So I need to just shift the energy, goddammit. And, whatever happens, happens. When we step back and we look at the larger picture, oftentimes there is a sense to it, which is cool. It just in the moment can feel like total chaos out of left field. So when we are experiencing transits with Uranus, we want to expect the unexpected. We want to be prepared for something to come out of left field. What can be kind of indicated by whether it's a square or a trine or an opposition and the planet or planets or celestial bodies that are involved in the transit. So this is a square. So right there, we get a sense of like, oh, there's going to be some friction. Whatever this is that's coming out of left field, this unexpected thing, this sudden shift, initially may feel uh, very like inappropriate or very inconvenient or very like against the grain. Like this is not just change. This is like abrupt change that is fully against my flow. Like going in the opposite direction of where I'm trying to go. Damn it. So initially, this week may have a sense of like, oh, here comes a bunch of crap down the pipe that I couldn't have planned for. And God damn it, it's putting all of my plans into disarray. Okay. But on the deeper level, where we're always going, right, there's that bigger pattern potentially with Uranus. And so what may feel like a very upset this week initially may reveal itself later to be something that is very useful. Remember, as we have talked about many times here on the podcast, when it comes to squares, do they suck? Yes, often they do. Are they difficult? Usually. But they are also moments where the universe is pointing directly at what is not working. And so now we know exactly what's not working. And the square is sort of a promise from the universe that if we apply ourselves to this thing that's uncomfortable and it's not working correctly and it doesn't smell good, we can make some really progressive progress. We can make some really important progress in whatever the system is, whatever the thing is that we're working on. So this square from Uranus in the midst of this new moon from Leo, conjunct Venus retrograde, right? What is this all putting together? It's saying, you know, maybe I need to return to or step into being a little more open with my community, being a little more loving with my community. But who am I sharing that stuff with? And how much is that influenced by my values? How much is that influenced by what I'm hoping to draw to me? And even though it might be very inconvenient for me initially, do I need to radically change something about this? something that feels maybe really inconvenient or a little personal, like, whoa, excuse me, and yet actually you might be right. That might be a lot of the energy that's coming through for us with this new moon and throughout this week. Uh, okay, so let me say this first. For our lunar body work, with our new moon in Leo, we are awakening, activating, adorning, stimulating, and preparing for action. The back, the heart, the circulation, and the blood. As I say every week, not a doctor of the human corpus, a doctor of, what am I a doctor of this time? The distaff, sure. And, check with your trusted health advisor if you want to incorporate any of the information here into your health regime. But also work with the metaphor. Always, always, we encourage working with the metaphor. So, is there something you need to get off your heart? Is there something you need to get off your chest? Is there something you need to get off your back? All very appropriate here. For our plant body work, spin your plants a quarter of a turn diasil or sunwise or clockwise if you haven't spun your plants in a while to encourage even growth all the way around your plants. This is also a great time for cultivating, harvesting for drying and storage, doing some pest control or disease control. This is a great time for plowing, weeding, and pruning above ground, as well as pruning to encourage above ground growth. Also, a great time for grafting, layering, taking cuttings, and planting annual crops that bear their fruits or leaves or what have you above ground, especially the leafy crops, and planting cereals, grains, melons, cucumbers, celery, cabbage, spinach, etc. Okay. So I'm going to pause us here briefly. I know that we changed stuff up a little bit last week. We're going to change it up again this week because what I want us to focus on this week is some very interesting stellar and celestial stuff that's happening. So, as we have just discussed, we are hanging out first and foremost with this new moon in Leo. Okay. So, we'll talk about the rest of the astrology in just a second. But here are a very interesting series of events for us to look at. So we start off the week with our micro new moon at 23 degrees of Leo. The very next day, August 17th, the sun enters Leo in sidereal astrology. I know it gets confusing. We don't have the time to talk about it here. And sometimes I'm like, why am I even bringing it up if I can't explain it? Send me an email. We'll talk about it. But the sun has just entered Leo in sidereal astrology. So in tropical and in sidereal, we are now in the sign of Leo, and we will be for a few more days. Okay. Just a couple of days later, we have the heliacal rising of the fixed star Alphard. That is the 19th. On the 20th, we have the heliacal risings of the fixed stars Ad Hafera and Al Jabah. On the 22nd, we have the heliacal rising of the fixed star Regulus. On the 23rd, we have the heliacal rising of the fixed star Thecta. And we have the sun moving into Virgo. And we have Mercury stationing retrograde, all on the same day, the 23rd of August. And so for me, this is a very interesting string of events. Starting with these fixed stars. I mean, I guess we kind of started with the new moon, right? So we've got so Leo, okay. If you didn't quite get that, go back and listen to the last 20 minutes. Leo, yay, thank you, calendar. Good Lord. Stuff is happening at all times. Okay. So let's get into these fixed stars here. First off, we have, as I mentioned, the heliacal rising of Alphard on August 19th. Now, this fixed star is found in the constellation Hydra, aka the water snake, It is specifically found in the neck of the water snake. Um, Now, just hang out with that for a second. It's also been called, I should say, the core hydra, or the heart of the water of the snake. Interesting connection already there, right? Okay. So just put a pin in that. Moving to August 20th, we have the heliacal rising of two fixed stars. First, Ad Hafara, and this is found in Leo, and it is in the mane of the lion. But the star name itself comes from the Arabic, and it specifically means the braid or the curl. Okay, just hang on, hang on. We also have on this same day the heliacal rising of Al Jabha, or Al Jabha. This is a star that is also found in Leo, and this star means the forehead. Okay, interesting, cool. Keep that, keep that. Moving to August 22nd, we have the heliacal rising of the fixed star Regulus. Now, Regulus, big superstar in the world of fixed stars and fixed star astrology. Everybody's a huge fan of Regulus, very fancy, very spiffy. Regulus is a star that shows up in astrological systems all over the planet. We see it in the Middle Eastern astrology, which is the root of the astrology that we practice here in the West, generally speaking. We see it in Chinese astrology, in Hindu astrology, in deep African astrology. Like, it's a big deal. It's a big star, big point, big fancy. And in just about every single one of those systems, Regulus means prince or king. It means the heart of the lion. It means the center. It is one of the four royal stars in Persia. Um, the Watcher of the North, because it marked the summer solstice, etc., etc. It's connected to the Archangel Raphael, um, and more magic and fancy stuff that we don't have time to talk about here in the podcast. Know that Regulus is a big deal, and it often represents sovereignty or royal leadership of some type. Okay. And then bringing us to our last heliacal rising of the week, we have the rising of Fecta, which is found in Ursa Major, or the constellation of the bear. And it specifically is in the thigh of the bear. Okay. So, what we have here is a very interesting series. We have our serpent. We have a star connected to the serpent, either the neck of the serpent or the heart of the serpent. We have a star that means the curl, a star that means the forehead, a star that means the leader or the sovereign, right? The royal leader, and then a star that means the thigh of the bear. Okay. So, the very first thing that I thought about was this image that I could not get out of my mind. I was actually quite confused by it initially, because I was searching through my books and I was looking online and I was trying to find, what is this image? I know I've seen it somewhere, but I can't figure it out. And the image is of a young child, boy, meh, kinda, but they're sort of androgynous. The young child with a single curl of hair on their forehead. And they have their index finger pressed over their mouth in a gesture that we today would interpret as silence. Shh, shh. Okay. This is the thing. There's this kid, this young boy or this young child, the curl on their forehead and silence. And I was like, what is this? Finally, I tracked it down. It is an interpretation of Horus as the child, or Horus the child. Now, tangent, if you're new to the podcast, queen of tangents over here. So just, I don't know, get a juice box and sit back, because here we go. I've got my juice box and I hope you have yours. Okay. So the way that we envision deities today, very different from how Egyptians envisioned their deities then. Many deities, this is actually quite similar to the way that Hindus envision a lot of their deities. Deities have different aspects. That's easy for us to understand, but they actually manifested as different versions of themselves in their depiction or their iteration of that aspect. So Horus the child literally connects to the rising sun and the beginning of a new day. And so Horus the child is an iteration of the deity Horus as his or their child self, as a personification of, here I am. I'm starting out. I'm beginning. This is the front of it. Now, this is on the surface an easy connection for me. And because over the last couple of weeks, we've talked about this a lot in the last few podcasts. Over the last few weeks, we have been witnessing ancient Egyptians celebrating the start of their new year. And this is a multi-week celebration. This is not a one and done, pop a bottle of champs and we're good to go. No, I don't think so. The Egyptians were like, we're going to throw a party for the rest of time. Like, we're throwing a party this weekend, aka the rest of this month. They really kind of went in. We could learn a few things from ancient peoples when it comes to celebrations. I'll just say that. So we are in the midst of this multi-week festival complex uh, that is sort of dedicated to welcoming in the new year, welcoming the new sun, the new Ra. Horus, of course, is the son of Osiris, the son of Isis, and yes, there is a connection here with sun and sun. So that is the first thing that I think of, right? We're also, importantly, in the midst of Lughnasadh season. We are also in this very special moment in time where we have our new moon in Leo. We have the sun actually astronomically entering the sign of Leo. And in tropical astrology, we're just about to enter the sign of Virgo. And so collectively, what I'm seeing here is this collection of symbols that's really pointing to our sovereignty. Coming back to our Leo symbolism, yes, it's about showing off, and yes, it's about grandeur, and yes, it's about big, generous, opulent displays, and being very magnanimous and taking care of our people and all of that stuff too. But ultimately, one of the other, well, not ultimately, but one of the other big elements of Leo is leadership, stepping into the roles of leadership and accepting the responsibility of leadership. This is a huge theme that we work with, tackle, wrestle with, work around, deal with throughout Lughnasadh season. What is it to be a leader? Where do I need to step up and be a leader? How do I handle the responsibilities of the choices I have to make as a leader? This is a lot of that work. And so here we have this week with these fixed stars that are like, let us literally depict Horus the child with the curl on their forehead, right? We think about the sign of Leo. It certainly has those curls. And I think the sign of Leo often looks like a lion's mane. But I also often think that the sign of Leo looks like a serpent. And the constellation of Hydra, the serpent, is in the sky at the same time, like in the same chunk of sky as the sign of Leo. So in a way, if we're working through Leo, we're working through Hydra. We're working through the serpent. And it also makes me think about the image of many different Egyptian pharaohs, as well as plenty of Egyptian gods and goddesses that are depicted with a uraeus on their forehead, which is literally a serpent, cobra. Um, And that serpent on their forehead is a representation of their holiness, their divinity, their divine right, their divine power, and their divine responsibility to their people. Um, it is always depicted directly in front of the third eye. Again, we don't have time, but rabbit holes abound. So I'm thinking about all of that stuff. I'm thinking about the fact that we have a ton of New Year celebrations happening at this time of year for ancient and modern cultures. Like what? Well, the Coptic New Year is happening. Uh, we just have had the ancient Egyptian New Year. The Zoroastrian New Year happens at this time of year. Um, Soon, in the next couple of weeks, we will be having Rosh Hashanah and Jewish New Year, etc., etc. So to say, that this is the new year or the head of the year or the start of the year is absolutely appropriate for some cultures, past and present. We are also in Lughnasadh season, this season that stresses and emphasizes the ideas of leadership, sovereignty, stepping into your power, and then wielding that power for the greatest good. And here we have this collection of really powerful symbols above our heads saying, here's the curl on your forehead, here is the serpent on your forehead. Go be the king, go be the sovereign, go be the queen, go be the royal leader that you are. Go step into your power and get shit done here in the week that we are having our new moon in Leo. Very cool stuff. I really wanted to just take a moment and talk about that a little bit. Now, I checked in with another wizard on this because, again, I was having a really hard time dialing in, like, who am I thinking of? What is this exactly? And so I checked in with William Kiesel, asked him, what does he think about this? And he mentioned that specifically, he thinks that that curl on the forehead of Horus the child connects to priesthood, not just regalness, not just an indicator of royalty or leadership, but also specifically priesthood. And that too connects very tightly for me with the week rounding out with us stepping into Virgo season. Virgo, we're going to talk a lot about the symbol. We already talked a lot about the symbolism in Virgo in the Lughnasadh class. We're going to talk about the symbolism of Virgo a lot in the Mabon class as well, and in the forthcoming podcasts. But Virgo connects us to the tarot card, the Hermit. And the Hermit is very much a type of priest, really a monk, right? And is very much about their own thing and being private and going within and, having this like these spiritual epiphanies and these religious moments where they've retreated from society and they're having this like inner dialogue with God and the inner experience of their spirituality. But at some point, we ask that archetype to come back out and share some of its information with us, please and thank you. Hence why when we look at the Hermit card, it's holding that lantern up, right? It's not keeping the light for itself, it's holding that light out for others. But it has generated that light by going into the darkness and being with itself. Okay. So that might be even a further stretch for some folks, and I get that. But that there is this potential priestly connection to this is sort of that indicator of like it's not just about the fact that there's leadership here and sovereignty, but also there's something priestly about this work that's being done. Something else that I want to say about this collection of symbols and the time period that we are moving through it is one of the most important things that leaders do, and I say it with a question mark because often in the present day and age, our leaders do not do this, but they're supposed to, as far as I'm concerned. Um, Leaders, I think one of the jobs of leaders is to help people have hope and to help people be brave in the face of trials, in the face of challenges, confusion, uh, unsettling events. I think that that is part of what a leader is supposed to do. Sometimes they do that through, you know, feel good gestures. Sometimes they do that by dispensing information. Sometimes they do that with a display of power, like whatever it is, right? And that stuff works for some of us and it does not work for some of us. But in total, I really do think that that is part of being a leader, is that you're able to turn to your people and say, we're going to make the best of this. We're going to get through this somehow. And this is an important element to me too, because um, Lughnasadh season is the bending of the light, the darkening of the light portion of the wheel. When we work with figures like Crom Cruach, who becomes Crom Dub, whose name literally means the bent crooked one, the crooked light, the darkening light. What that's an indicator of is the sun, having been at its zenith, is now descending. It's now coming down. And as a leader, you oftentimes know more than the folks that you're leading. That doesn't make you better. It's just that that's a part of the responsibility of being in that position, is you get more information, you see more of the pattern on the trestle board, you have a bigger scope of what happened, what is happening, and what might happen in the future. You've got your guides and your council, and you're all right, like you've got a collection of people in theory helping you do this, all of that stuff, right? And so in the midst of this high point, right, it's hot as hell outside, it's summertime, the grains are popping off, uh abundance for days, right? It's warm, we can sleep outside, all that stuff, right? But the wise leader, the priestly sovereign, who is guided by the rhythms of time, the undulating waves of time, like a serpent, knows that the sun is going to die, knows that this moment, this golden moment that we are experiencing, will not last. And we need to plan for that. And we need to somehow stay hopeful in the midst of the oncoming darkness. So that stuff too is really coming through strongly for me as I look at the collection of holy days that we have this week, which I'm going to skim through very quickly. When we look at this collection of our new moon, our heliacal risings of these fixed stars rising with the sun every morning, and then the sun stepping into Leo in one system, the sun stepping into Virgo in another system, is this sense of the universe sort of saying, hey, can I put this illuminating crown on your head? Wink wink. No big deal, just lots of power and glory. Doesn't that sound fun? Cool, now you're responsible for everybody, figure it out. It probably won't play out exactly like that for you, but again, this is one of those weeks where the symbolism for me is very heavy. It's very straightforward, is maybe the better way to say it. It's very obvious. It's like, hello, I'm right here. Um, this is one of those weeks that's asking us to step into our power and accept the responsibility of wielding that power, especially because, though it may not seem like it today to the untrained eye, for those with eyes to see and ears to hear, we know that the darkness is coming. We know that there are probably more frightening times ahead of us before there are glad times. And we need to summon the wisdom and the courage and the love to step into the leadership roles that make sense for us in joy and demonstrate to ourselves and to other people we can light a torch and find our way. We can light a lamp and find our way through this. I am wearing my holiness on my head. It is right here between my two eyes. I have the symbol, and I'm just getting started. Simultaneously, we are working with imagery about the sun dying and the sun being reborn. Potent stuff, which is very potent stuff for us to work with this week. Okay. So, briefly, I'm going to go over some of our holy days that we have this week in order. Am I actually? No. I'm going to pause on that. Wait. Insert kombucha girl meme. Delirious from the heat. I really don't know what's happening anymore. Am I still recording? Yeah, okay. This is this thing on? Okay, no. I'm going to give you your astrology for this week, and then I'm going to briefly go through our holy days for this week, I guess. Whatever. All right. August 16th, we have our micro new moon in Leo. Also on this day, we have Mars in Virgo trine Uranus in Taurus at 23 degrees. So all that stuff that we said about Leo, we have this Mars trine Uranus vibe all up in the mix. And that's going to radiate for a couple of days because Mars is a slower moving planet. So it's going to take a day or two to hang out at this degree before it moves on. Even in the best of circumstances, Mars plus Uranus can be a lot of trouble on the physical plane. If you have been listening to this podcast, you know that I'm not a huge fan of being too prescriptive with astrology or determinative with astrology. But I will say that when it comes to Mars and Uranus, even with a trine, these guys can cause or indicate physical accidents. Going too fast, not looking where you're going, thinking about the future, not thinking about the present, being impatient, being in a hurry, being fired up equals fender benders in traffic, tripping over stuff because you didn't see it, dumb little things like that. Slow down, take a breath, double check things, make sure your shoes are tied, leave 10 minutes early just in case there's wackiness in traffic or whatever. And just give yourself a little bit of buffer room on all sides to be a little extra clumsy and for things to just take a little longer than they should, maybe just because you feel impatient or everybody else is in a rush to get somewhere. You know how it goes. Okay. Generally speaking, though, it's a great transit for new ideas popping up. It's a great transit for encouraging boldness, but not necessarily vanity, which we certainly want more of with a Leo new moon. Okay. And then scooching all the way down to Saturday the 19th, we have the sun in Leo trine the North Node in Aries. That is also extremely potent, given this symbolism that we are working with during this week. This very much sits with this idea of the sun, sense of self. Who am I? What is this life about? What are we trying to get done? What are we doing here? And the North Node. What is my destiny? What is my fate? What is my fortune? How do the gods and goddesses feel about what I'm doing? How do my ancestors feel about what I'm doing? And with a trine, this could be a really fantastic day. Again, this is Saturday the 19th. With a trine, this could be a fantastic day for asking for information, asking for signs, asking for symbols, to point you in the direction that is of the greatest benefit for you and everybody else. So you want me to step into leadership and take on some responsibility, huh? Can you give me a little guidance around that? Please and thank you. Great day for that. Okay. Moving on to Tuesday the 22nd, we have two different things going on. We've got Venus retrograde in Leo, square Jupiter in Taurus at 15 degrees, and we have Mars in Venus opposing Neptune retrograde in Pisces at 27 degrees flat. That is exactly at 27 degrees. Um, so, so what are we doing with that, right? Um, First off, Venus square Jupiter, it's fine. This might be a day where you're like, everything is fine. I'm going to lay on the couch all day. I don't care about responsibilities. Piss off. And if you've been having a hard time of it, enjoy. That's a no pants kind of transit as far as I'm concerned. Enjoy some bonbons, put on some old movies or new, and kick back. But generally speaking, any of our transits that are Venus Jupiter transits are lovely. They're delightful. They're sweet. They're fun. They're very lighthearted. It's a great day for socializing. Be safe. Mask up. We are in a COVID spike. Let's be real, people. So it's plenty hot. Go hang out outside. It's a great day for connecting with folks. It's a great day for jovial activities, love-oriented activities. Where can it go awry? It is a square. We can overextend, overspend, overpromise, overcommit. That's the hardship, or that's the thing to watch out for when we've got a square between Venus and Jupiter, is we can overdo it. Overeat, you know what that means for you. Or over smoke or over drink, overdo it. We can just overdo, we can just like do a little too much for ourselves. So, just be aware of that. And then also on this day, we have Mars and Virgo opposing Neptune in Pisces. Now, this is a day, this is a transit that can be very confusing, Neptune. B, even more confusing because Neptune really wants to just go slow and drift, and Mars is like, hurry up, I needed to be there yesterday. What the damn? But the other very intense combination of this stuff can be martyrdom. And that martyrdom that's like, I don't care if I obliterate myself to this end. One of the astrologers that I listen to describes this as Joan of Arc energy. Sacrificial energy, crusades, chivalry, right? The two ways that could get really gross or kind of cool. So combining that with the Venus square Jupiter, there really could be a moment of overcommitting, overextending, way overdoing it for the cause, right? Or if we're getting into that crusader mentality, we might be just like rife with dogma and righteousness, and I can do anything, and I have the glory of God on my head. I heard it in a podcast. There's a snake in my brain. That sort of thing. That kind of thing. So just pay attention to your attitude, okay, on Tuesday the 22nd, because this could either be a very chill day where you're dreamy and enjoying the couch and just having a lovely time. It could be a day of hanging out with friends in the sun and overdoing it just a little bit, but everybody's having a great time and we're very passionate about talking about our spiritual practices. Or this could be a day where we're like going a little ham, overcommitting, and like to the point of actually martyring ourselves in some goofy way that is not actually serving the community at all. Not a big fan of the whole martyrdom thing. I don't know if that's come through or not, but I'm not a fan. But before that, how about an ad? Okay. If you love this podcast, you can support this work through Patreon. Thank you a bajillion billion times. See, the sirens are going off even as I say it. Thank you so much to my patrons. You guys don't even know. You don't even know. Thank you so much. You can sub for as little as $1 if you just think this podcast is dope and you want to support it. I don't run ads on the podcast, partly because I don't want to, and partly because I won't get paid even if I do. So screw them, man. You can sub, as I said, for as little as $1 or $5, even if you want to just support the podcast. And this is plenty of information. But if you want even more information, extra podcasts, extra videos, extra information about the Wheel of the Year, magical practices, tarot, etc., subbing at the higher levels, you get all kinds of cool free stuff. And at the even higher levels, you get free readings every month with me to be able to integrate all of this information into your personal life based on what's going on in your natal chart and all of that other good stuff. Join and change your life forever. Or, whatever. Thanks so much for the support. If you can't support financially, I completely understand, because life sucks on Earth right now. It's too expensive for everything. Tell a friend, share it on social media, give it a thumbs up. If you're feeling especially hedonistic, you can leave a rating or a review. All right, that's the end of the ad. Let's get back to the podcast. All right, and last but certainly not least, on Wednesday the 23rd, we have the sun moving into Virgo, and we also have, just literally 12 hours later-ish, 11 hours later, Mercury stationing retrograde at 21 or 22 degrees of Virgo. Okay, so all this Leo energy, right, culminating in, we're heading into Virgo. Virgo energies abound. And I will correct myself here. I noticed that I think at the beginning of the podcast, I said Mars is in Leo. I'm full of lies. Mars is in Virgo. It's actually towards the end of Virgo. So Virgo energies there. That was the thing that I meant to do, whatever. So so what are we doing with Virgo stuff? We are organizing the sock drawer. We are alphabetizing the silverware. We are dealing with the details. And when we think about this again in the scope of our Sabbats, this makes a lot of sense. We are in the midst of the grain harvest. And that is a lot of tiny little things to keep track of. Delightful for Virgo. We are switching over from the high part of the year into the dark part of the year. Virgo is the last sign before fall equinox. And so Virgo comes along in the midst of all of this high, hot energy and is like, no, 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 no. We got to get laundry done. We got to get the siding up on the barn. We got to get the roof, rethatched. Like, what are you doing? And everybody's like, what are you talking about? It's gorgeous outside. I'm playing. I'm relaxing. I've been working in the fields. I'm chilling out. And Virgo's like, no, we got stuff. Come on, come on, come on. And so Virgo gets this reputation of being very uptight, very anal about things, overly analytical. And yeah, that can be true about Virgo energy sometimes. Sometimes it is a little too wound up. It's a little too concerned with the details and forgets to keep the big picture in mind. Yes, this is true about Virgo. I know my Virgos out there are like, but somebody's got to organize the silverware drawer. What the hell? And sure, I guess, right? Like, but again, what I will say is this: all of us have Virgo in our chart somewhere. Virgo natively connects to the 6th house. All of us have a 6th house somewhere in our chart. And Virgo is ruled by the planet Mercury. All of us have Mercury in our chart somewhere. So this is all energy that we are working with in some capacity somewhere in our life. What is Virgo energy good for? Nothing. No, that's an absolute lie. Virgo energy is the thing that helps us pay our bills on time. It helps us tidy up the house even when folks aren't coming over. Virgo energy in us helps us keep things organized and cataloged and parsed out into the little pieces. Virgo finds the patterns. Virgo finds the little mistakes and corrects them. And yeah, that can be really uptight sometimes. But Virgo also is the person that's planning, or that energy that's in us that's ready for anything, ready for any contingency. That's Virgo. So The sun is stepping into Virgo, and we will talk about this more in the next coming weeks as we actually get into Virgo season. Virgo is a mutable sign, and all of our mutable signs come at the end of seasons. And so they herald the end of one thing and the oncoming beginning of another thing. Our mutable signs show us it's time to adjust, it's time to change shape, it's time to let go of that thing and end it and make the space for whatever the cardinal signs are bringing in next. Virgo does all of that stuff for us, or represents all of those things for us in our process. So Virgo comes along right at the end of summer when we think, I can't handle any more heat. I've overblown, I've overspent, I've overdone it. And Virgo is like, cool, go hang out in a cave. Why don't you shut up for a minute? Go put on some sackcloth and hang out in the dark. Go be by yourself for a while. Goddess bless Virgo season and Virgo energy. Virgo energy is my excuse. Like, I have a Virgo moon. I have to go be alone. Sorry, I can't possibly respond to that text message. There's just no time. There's no way. And so there's that connection to that priestly thing that I was talking about, right? This is where the leader and the priest are a little different from each other, or potentially different, right? The leader is often on stage a majority of the time, right? And is ostentatious and wearing the crown and the symbols of the kingdom and the blah, 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 right? That's their job, is to go be a fancy, sparkling figurehead. The priest, on the other hand, can excuse themselves and say, I gotta go have some quiet time. I gotta go be by myself with God. Now I'll be back. I'll be back. And so they get that opportunity to go be the monk, to be the hermit, and step away from the overt forms of leadership and take a moment to recoup, regroup, reorganize, review, all of that stuff, right? To me, that is exactly what Virgo season is all about. And so for me, I'm very excited about us having a Mercury retrograde in the sign of Virgo. I'm sure that there are a lot of folks who are not. They're like, oh my God, Mercury rules Virgo. This Mercury retrograde is going to kick my ass. And maybe it is. Your mileage may vary, right? Are you a person who loves to organize stuff? You get to reorganize things. Are you a person that loves to, recount? You get to recount. Renegotiate. You get to renegotiate, right? Mercury, while it's in Virgo, is not only the leader or the ruler of Virgo, it is also exalted in Virgo. So if there was ever a Mercury retrograde that we were going to be able to just wring out like a sponge and get every last juicy bit of usefulness from, this is a retrograde. This is a Mercury retrograde to do just that. Mercury is going to be retrograde in Virgo from, looking at the notes, August 23rd to September 15th, where it stations direct at 8 degrees of Virgo. So approximately 21 or 22 degrees of Virgo back to 8 degrees of Virgo. Look at your natal chart. Find out where 21 degrees to 8 degrees of Virgo is. What house or houses does that cover in your natal chart? That's where you're going to have a supreme opportunity to review, reevaluate, rediscuss, reorganize, recatalog, the hell out of it. Really cool, really, really helpful. Does that mean that some cool plans might get undone? Probably. Does that mean you might be feeling like you are walking backwards and not making any forward progress for those weeks? Yes, absolutely. But as we know, there is no such thing as forward or backwards. Time is a flat wheel, right? But also, walking backwards is still making forward progress if we are undoing mistakes, right? or we're walking backwards down a path that turns out I didn't want to go down this path. Well, let me retrace my steps back to the main path and head off in a different direction. To recalibrate, to reorganize, to renegotiate gives us an opportunity to make better, to lessen the crappy and to improve and to heighten the improvement and the better, the goodness. Um, I think that this is also very interesting timing, given all of the other stuff that we've been talking about in the podcast so far, because let's say the symbolism is as overt as it seems. Here's the gods and goddesses laying this crown upon our head, the great uraeus of priestly sovereignty and knowledge and wisdom and guidance from the forces and all that stuff, right? Okay, go be the leader, figure it out. I absolutely want to make sure that I know what the fuck I'm doing, right? I absolutely want to make sure that I am on the path I ought to be on, that I'm pointed in the direction I need to be pointed in. So let me take a moment as this is happening, Mercury retrograde in Virgo. Let me take a moment to make sure that I am really pointed in the direction I mean to be pointed in. That is for the greatest good of all. Enjoy. Just that. I think that symbolism can be very heavy and difficult to work with when we're talking about the crown, right? Like, eesh. But we all wear the crown. We all do it. We are all leaders somewhere in our lives. We are all the rock star somewhere in our life. And so this Mercury retrograde is really giving us a dope, super cool opportunity to be very, very dialed in on exactly what we mean to be doing with that power, that stuff. Virgo is very concerned with the body, the physical world, the environments that we work in, the types of people that we work with. As far as I'm concerned, unions and the efforts of unionizing are covered under Virgo and the sixth house. You knew there was a leftist rant somewhere. Come on, I held out for an hour. Don't give me that. Don't look at me like that. As far as I'm concerned, Virgo is very much about that. So we might see some really potent stuff happen for unions during this Mercury retrograde that initially seems like a setback, but is ultimately, hopefully, a renegotiation to something that is even more solid and stronger for the greatest good of all. Yeah. So that kind of stuff might be coming up for you. All at the same time being asked to step into a level of responsibility and realizing the very first thing that we got to do is restructure this business. You've asked me to take over, and I have, and I've realized this is totally out of whack. We got to pull the whole car over and reorganize the trunk and the back seat before we go anywhere. I can't drive like this. I can't drive like this. I can't drive at all, but but I think you get what I mean. Okay, so that's our stuff. That's our astrology. That's all the stuff that's happening up in the sky. Very, very quickly, I'm going to skim over very quickly a little bit of the collection of festivals that we have in this week. From our Vodun friends and ancestors, August 16th and 17th, we have festivals for Papa Ogan Felit, as well as Saint Jacques. From our Egyptian friends and ancestors, we have the ongoing festival, multi-week festival complex of welcoming in the new year. This is the first new moon of the ancient Egyptian new year. So this is the jubilation of the year's first Pestientiu, aka new moon. And we have festivals this week from our ancient Egyptian friends and ancestors dedicated to Satis, Nefertem, Isis, Nut, Horus, Nun, who else? Tithos, Osiris, Ptah, Amun-Ra, Sabaka. I'm just running them all down for the rest of the week because there's so many of them. Shu, Tefnut, I think I already said. Osiris, I think I already said. Hedgehotep, Geb, and much of the stuff towards the end of the week is actually dedicated to Horus and various versions of Horus. Mixed in with that for our ancient Egyptian friends and ancestors. We also have the Wag festival, which is the festival of drunkenness. Um, and this is, again, a big extension of this multi-week festival welcoming in the new year. From our other friends and family and ancestors from around the world, very quickly, on August 17th, we have Shoresh Elul, which is the start of the new month for our Jewish friends and ancestors. We have Kalende September, which is the start of the month of September, quote unquote, from our Roman friends and ancestors. And then on August 18th, because we count time slightly differently from one civilization to the next, we have the beginning of Metagetion, which is the new month for our Greek friends and ancestors. Um, what other festivals do I want to talk about? From our Yoruba friends and ancestors, approximately at this time of year, we have the Shadi or Sharo festival. And this is a festival that is very much in league with a lot of the festivals that we see around the planet from late Litha all the way through Lughnasadh season. This is about competition, and it's a bit of a harrowing experience where this is a competition and a traditional rite of passage for young men uh, in the Jafun Fulani. The youths, escorted by girls, are led into a ring of spectators, bare chested and armed with whips. As the noise of singing and drumming and cheering rises to a crescendo, each young man must stoically endure a flogging to demonstrate his manhood. And so for me, this is in league with the competition games that we see from our Irish friends and ancestors as the heart of the Lughnasadh celebrations. This is in alignment with things like the Sundance Festival that we see from our indigenous friends and ancestors here in America, and other festivals that are happening around this time throughout of this competitive showing of power and prowess. Um, Lots of that kind of stuff happening at this time. Um, from our Zoroastrian friends and ancestors, we have the Persian New Year as the sun enters Leo, and that is also August 17th. Um, Other stuff that's happening. We have from our Roman friends and ancestors, Juno Regina's Day and the Dies Natalis for one of the temples of Jupiter the Thunderer and Jove the Free. But later in the week, on August 21st, we have a Dies Natalis for Jupiter Stator. And this is Jupiter who stands still, or Jupiter who is unmoved, Jupiter the stationed, the sustainer. And also on this day, just a day before the Drunkenness Festival, we have a festival dedicated to Dionysus, the Mames Vendimia, which is a festival of the vintage of Dionysus. So a big celebration of wine from the year before. Um, Other stuff that we have going on this week uh, from our Greek friends and ancestors, we have the Heraclea, which is a festival dedicated to Hercules and is 100% within that competition thing that's going on. Skipping around a little bit more, what else do we have? From our Hindu friends and ancestors from August 19th through the 29th, we have the Hariyali Tej, and this is a giant festival that is dedicated to the monsoon season. Um, and a moment of remembering the reunion between Shiva and Parvati. This is the day when Shiva accepts Parvati as his wife. And this is a tapping into another strong theme that we see through Lughnasadh season of holy weddings that take place for the sake of power. Um, Also from our Hindu friends and ancestors, running from August 20th to the 31st, we have Onam. And Onam is a deep harvest festival that's taking place. Makes sense in alignment with lots of this other stuff that we're talking about. And then on August 21st, we have from our Hindu friends and ancestors, Nag Panchami. And this is a traditional day of worship for Nagas or snakes. What? Hello? Yes, absolutely. Uh, do we have another festival this week dedicated to one of these constellations that we were talking about? Yeah, our ancient Egyptian friends and ancestors have a festival on August 18th dedicated to Meskhetiyo, the ancient Egyptian name for the constellation known to us today as Ursa Major, the bear. And this is a symbol and aspect of Set. Now, that is pretty spicy. Last week, we went in hard on the Saturn symbolism that is embedded in the harvest symbolism that we work with at this time of year. And by some accounts, Set and Saturn are connected to each other, related to each other, possibly even iterations of the same idea. Interesting stuff. As we like to say here on the podcast, I'm sure it's just a coincidence. No. Moving through from our Asian friends and ancestors in China, this is the Kishi Festival. From our Japanese friends and ancestors, this is the Tanabata Festival. Both of these are big festivals celebrating the harvest as well as celebrating the these two constellations meeting together within the Milky Way up in the sky. So another sacred marriage. And then last but not least, we have a very interesting collection from our Eastern Orthodox friends. We have the Feast of the Transfiguration of Christ. From our modern pagan Wheel of the Year calendars, we have the marriage of the god and goddess. We also have the Festival of Hecate happening this week on August 21st. And then from our Catholic friends and ancestors, we have the Queenship of Mary on the 22nd, the day before the sun steps into Virgo, the sign of the Virgin. And so these festivals all are moments of recognizing the leadership, the sovereignty, the power, and the holiness of these deities. And those deities are kind of like stepping into that leadership role and that power, all happening this week. Okay, that's it. That's all we're going to cover for Holy Days. We're going to move directly on now to the rest of my notes. If I can find the right window, here we are. Okay, go me. What have we got for our astrology? Right. Let me round out here. What are we doing for astrology? Here are your notes. I know this episode has been all over the board. It's because I'm delirious with heat. Uh, Wednesday the 16th, we have our new moon in Leo at 23 degrees. We also have Mars in Virgo, trine Uranus in Taurus at 23 degrees. And just a little bit later that day, the moon moves into Virgo. August 19th, we have the moon moving into Libra, and we have the sun in Leo trine the north node in Aries at 26 degrees. On the 21st, we have the moon moving into Scorpio. And on the 22nd, we have Venus retrograde in Leo, square Jupiter in Taurus at 15 degrees, as well as Mars in Virgo, oppose Neptune retrograde in Pisces at 27 degrees. And then Wednesday, the 23rd, we have the sun stepping into Virgo, and we have Mercury stationing retrograde at 21 degrees of Virgo. I'm also realizing in this moment, as I'm drenched in sweat, that we didn't talk about the other moon of this week. I apologize. And we're not really going to talk about it now. So, whoops. But what we have is Sunday, August 20th, 5:23 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, later in the day for everybody else around the planet. A waxing crescent moon in Libra at 5 degrees. The waxing crescent is encouraging us to grow away from the past, and we might be really feeling a pull around that. This moon is trine Saturn retrograde in Pisces, so that pull from the past might be extra potent on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday around this moon. And also, the work that we're doing with a waxing crescent moon in Libra can be around saying the thing that nobody wants to say, being the person that's like, all right, nobody else is going to say this, I'll say it, and ending up the bad guy or ending up the person that's like not the favorite. Blend all of that into all this other stuff that we've been talking about, right? There's a lot there. There's a lot there. Okay. So, what are we working with for tarot this week? I would say you really kind of have your pick of the 5 different cards that we work with during Taurus or during Leo season. I know we've already worked with some of these. Maybe it feels right to work with them again. Our 5 cards that we work with during Leo season are Strength, which connects to Leo, the Sun, which connects to the Sun, which is the ruling planet of Leo, and the 5, 6, and 7 of Wands, which are the minor arcana that work with Leo. You could certainly pull out the Royals or the court cards from the Wands suit as well this week if you want to, because we've just got so much imagery to work with around leadership and sovereignty and priestliness and all of that stuff. But the card that keeps kind of showing up for me, even though I think in my notes I had the Sun or whatever, so cool, pull them all out, but whatever. The card that really keeps standing out for me, honestly, is the 7 of Wands. And in the 7 of Wands, we see in the Rider-Waite deck or the Pamela Coleman Smith Waite deck, we see a person that seems to be standing up on like a rise or a little cliff or a mound of dirt of some type. And they have a staff in their hand, and there are 6 other staves kind of pointing generally at them. And it's easy to assume that this person is in a defensive stance. So I think part of the reason why this card is standing out to me and saying like, hey, work with me this week, is because there's a lot of opportunity this week to feel like people are coming at you. And things are expected of you, and you need to figure this out, and this is the tradition, and why aren't you following it, blah blah blah. And that part, let me go a little further into. If we look very carefully at the shoes that this person is wearing, they are 2 different shoes. Why not? I can't wear 2 different shoes. They're my shoes. I'll wear whatever damn shoes I feel like wearing. You're lucky I got shoes on at all. Look at this shoe ain't up your ass. Right? Like it's a little bit of that energy on the surface. This is a card that really talks about us feeling defensive around our uniqueness, feeling defensive around the things that make us special. And yet, we don't know what's on the other end of those stabs in the picture, right? All we see is a person standing on this rise of dirt and 6 stabs that sort of look like they're pointing at them. It could be the top of a fence. It could be 6 wands stuck in the ground and literally no one else is around. It's just us tilting at windmills, fighting shadows. So this is also a card that asks us, am I imagining this? Am I creating a fight? Am I creating friction where there doesn't have to be friction? Am I making this harder than it needs to be? But it also is a card that says, whether I am actually being attacked for my uniqueness or I'm feeling defensive around my uniqueness is actually something to be celebrated here. My unique way of doing my thing is the thing that needs to be celebrated. And this is something that I will say in Lughnasadh season over and over and over again. It is wonderful to step into your leadership. It is wonderful when we take up our torch and we illuminate the people around us. That is wonderful work. But it is the most potent when we do that in our unique way, our special way of doing it. When we hold up a light, that's wonderful. But when we hold up a light in a way that no other person does, that's really something special. And that's actually what the gods and goddesses and ancestors want from us. They want us to do our thing, but they want us to do it our unique way. because that is when the real alignment of everything that has ever happened to result in you comes into sharp focus. So, be that weird fucking thing that you are. Be that vulgar saint. Be that bizarre sovereign individual, right? Because nobody else is ever going to do it the way that you do it. Okay. For our witchcraft this week, step into your leadership, dude. Step into your power. Our witchcraft this week should be about cultivating prowess and performing it for others and showing off and being a badass. And our journal prompts this week: list some talents or skills that you want to learn or improve. Pick one and commit to it, and then apply yourself and some time in the next couple of weeks to perform that skill for friends, families, or loved ones. That could be learning a recipe from an ancestor and deciding to cook that and serve that food to others. It could be learning a song, painting a painting, sewing a piece of clothing. That performance thing could be all kinds of stuff. The weirder and more unique to you, the better. Blessed be.